Streaming. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to F1 2019 ORL Season 11 for round 11, pardon me, here at Silverstone, Britain. We've about got 3 minutes left in qualifying. I do apologise. I was having a lot of issues with my stream setup, and it's meant that we have missed a large part of qualifying. So again, my deepest apologies to everyone. Yeah, so commentary again provided by myself, Milky Cereal, and of course Maku, and we've got a big grid for tonight.
Yeah, we've got 19 drivers out tonight. I don't know if there's someone coming up after the qualifying to fill the grid completely. But as shown in the graphics, Hypers is already retired from the session. I don't know why, because I just saw he retires, so he will start from the back.
As you mentioned, Hypers has retired from the session. He might still have some time to rejoin, but maybe he clouded the wall. As I mentioned earlier, we weren't able to really see what was going on as I was trying to fix some stream settings. Also, because of that, it means that we're not going to have the same overlays as usual. Hopefully, we can get all of this fixed up by next week. However, we're riding aboard with Flex's Marcy at the minute, but I'm going to change it over because I want to watch out for... Actually, let's take a look at Mark, because we haven't seen Mark in a while. He's on some fresh, soft tyres, and he's always one to watch out for in the Ferrari. And, of course, another thing I want to bring up is we've been hyping up Williams a little bit recently, Maku, because they've been doing really well. Lehman and Matthias have been doing such a fantastic job for their team. Lehman picking up a second place, and Matthias came second on track, but after time penalties he fell down. But Mark...
Milky, I think we're still not live.
Oh my... Are you kidding me? It says we're live. My thing tells me we are live. It has a green button. It says we're live, and it says 2 people are currently watching.
Oh, wait.
Right?
Oh, no. Yeah.
See? Right? See, you guys are ruining what was a high-quality stream right here. Okay?
I am sorry.
No worries. Better safe than sorry. 27 seconds left in the session. Triton Lehman is on his outlap. Also, watch out for Calcifer. We haven't seen him in a while, as we mentioned before. Hypers is out, starting from the back of the grid. And we hyped up how Photon, he's closing in onto Hypers in the championship. This could be a big opportunity for him to make that final little inroad onto Hypers. Maybe even, dare I say, jump ahead of him in the championship. But let's sit on board with Triton Lehman, who is on a hot lap right now, working his way through the final part of Sector 1 and onto the Wellington Straight. We go, DRS in full activation. Just wait for the braking down into Brooklands. He's a 200th up at the minute. It's going to be so tight between him and Mark. Into Luffield we go. Get on the power as early as possible. Little bit of an ocean from the back end. Just wants to step out through the little kink of Woodcote. And now down the old start finish straight into Cop's Corner. It's almost flat. Just a tiny little lift from Lehman. And now down into Maggot and Beckett's the best part of the circuit for most drivers. Slow it down now as you come into Abbey and onto the Hangar Straight. What's it looking like? Still 300ths up on his previous best. This is going to be on a knife's edge between Lehman and Mark. Into Stowe Corner we go. It's so fast, but he runs wide, and that might be his lap done and dusted. Slowing it down into Abbey. Now easing the power on onto the start finish straight. Take a little bit of the curb. It's a 26.03 and Triton Lehman will take pole position. He ran a bit wide out of Stowe Corner though there, Maku.
Yeah, that was a little bit too wide, in my opinion.
Yeah. However, here we go. Matthias coming around the final corner and... Okay, apparently he doesn't have time to complete the lap, it seems. I think he was on a hot lap, but there we go. Anyway, here is Pardon me?
Reward.
Here are confirmation of your qualifying results. Triton Lehman takes pole ahead of Mark, with Etnik taking third place. We know he had a very good time out last time in Austria. Hadler takes fourth ahead of Matthias, and Kopi, Mr. Anker, takes seventh ahead of second place in the championship. Photon, Kalsfer in ninth ahead of Bolkson in 10th. Ballas Kevin is in 11th, with Krusix in 12th, ahead of Andinator and Kaboom. Soren takes 15th after being disqualified last time out in Austria, with Rupert in 16th. And we've already gone out. I didn't do it quick enough. Sad times. Sad times. We've got rain,
Oh, it's
boys.
raining.
Yes, let's go. Actually, no. The same
What?
thing happened here last year, ORL Season 10. Nobody could overtake anybody, and that's where I learned that while F1 in real life is super exciting in the rain, in the F1 games it's very boring because no one seems to be able to overtake anyone.
Oh, hopefully that won't be the case this time.
Hopefully not, because we do have Hyper starting from the back of the grid. And the last time it was raining in ORL was back at China. And that time it was Formula Danny starting at the back of the grid. However, looks like we will be ready to go. Don't forget to put support towards your favorite drivers in the YouTube chat. We always try our best to get that through to you guys. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round 11 of ORL season 11 here at a very wet and rightly so Silverstone circuit. Triton Lehman takes pole ahead of Mark, who returns after a bit of an absence from ORL. Etnik takes third ahead of Hadler, and the second Williams of Matthias. Kopi is in 6th in the McLaren ahead of Anker, and the two Toro Rossos of Photon and Kalsfer once again very closely matched. Bolkson takes 10th ahead of Ballas Kevin, Krusix in 12th and Andinator in 13th. Kaboom takes 14th, with Soren in the 15th as Rupert is the second Red Bull in 16th. Flexis Marcy takes 17th ahead of WoW in 18th. And for unknown reasons, Velocity Hyper starting at the back of the grid. We are not quite sure why he was unable to complete a qualifying lap. In the driver standings, Velocity Hyper sits on top with 106 points ahead of Photon, who's closing things down, currently sitting 9 points behind. Napadovsky is in third on 76, with Lehman in that Williams climbing up fast on 51 points. Mark in 5th with 47, just 1 point ahead of the pair of Formula Danny and Hayes. Nameless is next in 37th, with Fabrizio Donoso in 9th on 33 points, tied with Stiv and Etnik RN.
And in the Constructors' Championship, we have Mercedes in first place with 131 points, the real-life championship winners.
Yep.
And in second place is the Red Bull Racing with 121 points. After them, there's Toro Rosso with 116 points. Then we have Ferrari with 84 points. We have Williams now up into 5th from 10th, like 2 races ago. And after that comes Alfa Romeo. Then we have Racing Point, followed by Renault, Haas, and McLaren.
It looks like we are ready to go then, as all the drivers lining up. The big changes heading into this race is that Kopi and Etnik are now main drivers for McLaren. Let's see what they can do for their teams. For their team, I should say, as all the drivers are lined up on the grid. Lehman takes pole for the first time in the year. Mark lines up alongside both these drivers high up in the championship. What can we expect to see as it's lights out and away we go? It looks like it's a good start from Etnik, or more specifically a bad start from Mark. Hadler might have to look for the inside, but it's all good for Lehman, who comes out ahead. But that's a Red Bull who has gone way wide. Actually, pardon me, that's Calcifer, who's all the way at the back of the grid now. I think that's a Haas who's looking down the inside into turn 4. Might be able to make it work. Triton Lehman takes the lead comfortably. Mark dropping down to 3rd. Full wet conditions. Hadler in 4th place. But look at this. Mark might be looking for a way through on Etnik, but he's a little bit too far back. However, everything's happening down the order as Photon looking round the outside of Matthias as Mr. Anker has dropped down a place. Photon having gained 3 places off up the start, and it is a fantastic start for the leading Toro Rosso driver.
And wow, and Hypers already gained 4 places, so Hypers is starting his chase up the grid.
As FX Rupert leaves the session as well. But a fairly clean start, I do believe. I think Calcifer, he ran wide, but I don't know if there was any contact, as there is a virtual safety car already on the lap of the race. And just look at the visibility and the track conditions. It's absolutely horrendous, Maku.
Yeah, hopefully we won't have the full rain all the race, because then, as you said before, it could get a little. But maybe Hypers will then be able to chase up to the front, and we will see a fight between maybe Photon and him.
And the virtual safety car is out, and it looks like we will be back underway and racing once again, as Bolton getting very close to Kobe in the battle for 8th place. Lehman picks up a fastest lap over 1:53 because it is the opening lap. Kobe will be able to stretch out the gap over Bolton, but let's drop down the order actually, because Crucix is right on the tail of Bolton and Kobe, but what I do really want to look at is Velocity Hypers, because he is going to be flying through the orders. He's just got past WoW and has already gained 6 places on the opening lap. And he's now right on the back of this train that leads all the way up to Kopi in 8th place.
The next one up is Aninator, his team colleague for today.
Yeah.
And hopefully Aninator will let him pass.
Here we go, Hypers right on the tail, looking to get the best of exits through Luffield, but it's just so difficult in the wet to get the traction. And you can see Hypers just snatching at the throttle, and the back end just trying to get out from underneath him as Hypers through cops. He's just too far back. We need to keep an eye on Photon as well, because he is very, very close to Mark right now, as Lehman just stretching out his lead with every passing corner. Here we go, Hypers, he's going to get a good run coming out of Church, down the hanger straight, on the inside as well. Can he make it work? Because you can carry a lot of speed into Stowe. Bandinator will let Hypers through without causing too much of an issue for his Mercedes teammate, as we get our first penalty of the day, going over to Mr. Anchor. It was a bit of a moment as Mr. Anchor actually dropping a couple of places. He's side by side with Matthias at the minute, around the outside of turn 2, and he will be able to reclaim 6th position. Don't forget to put your support towards your favourite drivers in the chat. We're always very happy to shout out some of your comments. Don't forget to give us your thoughts for who you think driver of the day should be. It's actually something that I was thinking of creating, Maku. Driver of the day gets to do a track guide for the next race.
Yeah, that would be kind of funny.
Photon closing in on Mark. Actually, Ednick was able to get through. No, Ednick has always been in second after the opening lap. Photon needs to find a way past. He is starting to lose ground onto Triton Lehman, who's pulling away at the front of the field. Meanwhile, Hypers is actually closing in onto Ballast Kevin, and he's almost in the top 10. It's only 26 laps here at Silverstone, and it will most likely be a one-stop race.
Yeah, as long as the weather won't change.
Oh yes. I would like some weather changing. Hypers runs wide, but as we saw in qualifying, that doesn't seem to get you a warning.
Yeah. Because the weather change would make the strategies very interesting.
Love a weather change. Maybe we can get confirmation if we will be seeing changeable conditions, or whether it will be full wet for the entire race. Someone's run wide up ahead of Hypers. Will rejoin the track just ahead of Crucix. It was Bolxon. He is now...
I think...
Oh, Hyper's down the inside into turn 4. Can he make it work? As Ballast Kevin will try to hold it around the outside, side by side, and Hypers will squeeze through up into 11th place.
Annihilator and Kaboom just had a little bit of contact, and I
There's
think
still...
Kaboom...
Oh, it's 3 abreast coming into Brooklands. There's contact between the Mercedes and the Sauber. And Flex's Marcy is going to be the one coming off worst. And now he's side by side with Calcifer, who after a rather disastrous start is looking to make some inroads to get towards the points. Still side by side, Calcifer on the outside heading into Cops. Is he brave enough? He's going to try to hold it. Almost contact, but great respect from the two drivers as Calcifer will move up into 16th and Flex's Marcy will slot in behind. Meanwhile, up at the front, Triton Lehman still has a 2.5 second gap over at Nick, and it will stay like that for the time being. Photon, he's so close to Mark, but he just cannot find a way through right now, as WoW picks up a 5-second time penalty for exceeding track limits. I only thought you could get 3-second time penalty, but apparently you can get 5 seconds as well for track limits. Oh, Photon just locking up that little bit, although I think someone was telling me that you just hear that lock-up sound a lot, as was there contact because Hadler losing the rear end on the exit of it, turn 4. Should not cost him too much as Mr. Anker fairly close in the second of the Ferraris. Matthias not too far back either, as there is then a big gap to Kopi and, well, everyone chasing him down. Oh, Hyper's looking for the inside of Krusix, who runs wide into Brooklands. He might be able to get a better line now through Luffield. Soren sets a fast lap, but look at Hyper's with the cutback. Does he have enough drive, though? Just trying to feed that power in a little bit of a moment. Down the inside into Woodcut, and the Krusix will not be able to shut the door. Hyper's is well and truly alongside into Cops. Who is the bravest of the two? It's going to be Hyper's, as Krusix gets pushed out a little bit wide, and Mark picks up a 3-second time penalty as well.
And Ethnic is slightly closing in on Lehman, so basically he got half of a second less between those two.
Yeah, Ethnic closing down Lehman at the sharp end of the field. Hyper's up into 10th now, can just look to close in onto Bolton and Kopi. Still got 20 laps remaining of the race and a lot of time for a lot of things to happen. Anker's still very close to Hadler as well, as we're just seeing, you know, two-way battles dotted across the track as WoW picks up his second time penalty of the race, as Anker looking to get the run out of turn 4 to carry all the way down onto the Wellington straight, but he's just a bit too far back. However, Photon is not. Photon is right on the tail of Mark, but the DRS just is not that effective in the wet. Sorry, not DRS, slipstream, pardon me.
DRS in the wet would be, well, not
It'd be
that
great.
good.
I'd love DRS in the wet. Right. Hypers is closing in onto Bolton, but he is still 1.5 seconds back at the moment. Bolton and Kopi are very close as Photon runs a little bit wide. As it stands, Photon would jump ahead of Hypers in the championship and take the lead. But Hypers is on a bit of a roll at the minute, charging through the field after starting from the very back of the grid. Oh, bit of a lock up from Photon. Hadler closing in, and we're starting to see a three-way battle now. Actually, sorry, I thought for a second Anker got past Hadler, my bad. Lehman gets a fast lap of a 43.7, and it's almost a second faster than Mark, who's really dropping off from Etnik. As Mark runs a little bit wide, Photon might just be smelling a way through. Mark will go to the outside. Photon dives down the inside. Mark turns a bit early, makes a bit of contact, but Photon is up into the podium spot now. Hadler's a bit too far back to really capitalize on Mark's mistake. As Hypers is within a second of Bollocks and has closed in about a second over the last 2-3 laps. But it's one thing closing up in the wet, and it's a completely different story trying to find a way through. Here we go, Hypers into Cops, obviously not as quick as it is in the driveway. We just hear a slight lift. Photon 2 seconds down on Etnik, but how much pace does he have? Can he close down Etnik and Lehman? Because he needs to get right on them by the time we hit the pit stop, so he has a chance of either getting through with the overcut or the undercut. Etnik within a second of Triton Lehman now. He's really making some great inroads, and Photon will be hoping that the pair of them can battle as hard as possible so he can just close in. Bolton still close to Kohopi, but just unable to find any way through at the moment. As up ahead, Mark is just the cork in the bottle here. Hadler, Anker, Matthias right on his tails as Flexmar C picks up a 3-second time penalty. I would actually be very interested, Mako, to ask the drivers at the end of the race, you know, how many of them went for dry setups, how many of them went for wet setups. Because at the minute, it looks like Mark is probably on a dry setup.
Yeah, that would be kind of interesting.
As Hypers has actually found a way through on Bolt, so we just missed that, but he did it down the inside into Luffield. And Hypers up into 9th place, and that's an extra point to add to his tally from this race. Hypers runs fairly wide through Cop's corner, down into Maggots and Beckett's.
Do you think Hypers will be able to get to, like, Fojan?
It's interesting, and I don't know, it probably comes down to setups, and with Hypers not having set a lap, he probably would have gone for a full wet setup, so he has the best chance of anyone to close Photon down. It's entirely possible he's arguably the fastest driver on the grid at the minute. We'll just have to see whether he can pull it out or not. I'm actually wondering if anyone could actually do just a no stop. Because obviously in the wet you don't have to make a pit stop.
Yeah, and you have to make a pit.
Hyper's going for a move on Kopi. Just going to let the car drift wide through turn 2 and down the inside into 3. Hyper's up into 8th place, and he can see Matthias ahead of him, and that goes all the way up to Mark. And you did ask, Maku, can he catch up to Photon? Well, he's practically at the back of that train now.
Yeah.
Oh, as up ahead, Mark's running wide. Hadler down the inside into Brooklands, but on the outside for Luffield. That's Mark having a bit of a moment. Let's just look at all of this unfold from behind as Mark squeezing Hadler out wide, and that's going to allow Anker to find his way through Woodcote corner up into 5th place. He could potentially look for a way through on Mark as well, but he's just a bit too far back as Mark running wide through Cops. And now Hadler, he gets a great run, is right on the tail of Anker as his Ferrari's lined astern in 4th and 5th place. Meanwhile, at the front as well, we're seeing the gaps between Lehman, Etnik, and Photon kind of not remaining stable. It's fluctuating back and forth. There's a lot of inconsistencies in the lap times at the moment as Matthias runs wide, but apparently that's fine according to Codemasters. It's up ahead. Anchor looked for the inside, but Mark able to hold on to fourth, round the outside into Abbey. Photon with a 43.6. That's the fastest lap of the race. And from being 2 and a bit seconds behind Etnik, he's now 1.1 seconds down. Etnik still within that 2-second gap to Lehman, and Hypers closing in onto Matthias. But we're still watching this battle for 4th place go on. Mark ahead of Anka, Hadler, and Matthias, with Hyper slowly closing in. He's only 1.3 seconds down. He was over 2 seconds behind a lap ago. In fact, I'm very interested to see what kind of lap times Hypers is setting. Soren's just set a 43.3. He made a very early pit stop. Not quite sure why. So 43.3 from Soren. Let's see what Hypers can manage if he is actually at the pace of these guys. That's Photon now 6/10 behind Etnik, and he's having an absolutely fantastic run at the minute. As Flexus Marcy has retired from the session, there's a yellow flag out in Sector 2. We're not quite sure what that is for. We'd have to presume it is for Flexus Marcy, as Wow picks up his 3rd time penalty of the race.
So if you take a look at the fastest laps, then Hypers is kind of 4th, because he can overtake. If he can drive the fastest lap times nearly every lap, he can overtake the 4 drivers in front of him, and the first 3 are driving a little bit faster. Or
half a second quicker. Photon just set a 43.3, Hypers 43.8, as Calcifer picks up a 5-second time penalty. I wonder where you have to cut the course to take a 5-second time penalty. I think it's Stowe, potentially. However, Hypers is well and truly joined onto the back of the long chain that goes all the way up to Mark in 4th place. Anchor very close to Mark. Will he look for the inside? He will, but Mark just later on the brakes will be able to hold on to 4th place. Photon half a second down onto Etnik, and will be starting to get held up, but we'll just be feeling the effects of slipstream just that little bit more now.
And because of the effects of Mark, Anka, Hadler, and Matthias battling, Mark has now 5 seconds to follow. So that's a big gap between 4th and the rest of the podium.
So Hypers and Photons are the drivers we really need to be watching out for right now, because Hypers caught up to Matthias, well, this entire group, hand over fist, and Photon has been catching up to Etnik fairly quickly, as Hypers has a massive moment with the back end coming through through Chapel, and just about saves the back end. It's also great to see lap times just being improved upon consistently, lap after lap. Unlike in the dry, where the tires just degrade so quickly, in the wets, you can just keep on pumping out those quick lap times. Oh. Hyper's having a look down the inside. That's very aggressive, but he won't be able to make that work, because Matthias had fallen a little bit back behind Hadler, but he's caught that gap right back up. Kopi a second down on Hypers, might be slowly closing in, as Mark still the cork in the bottle that just wants to unleash a torrent of water right now. Photon 2/10 down on Etnik, and he's been catching up very, very steadily. And to be fair, Etnik only 1.5 seconds down onto Lehman. So maybe just that little bit of pressure from Photon could just push Etnik along and close these 3 right up. However, Hypers, can he get the run out of Chapel? Oh, has another little moment with the back end. We saw him almost lose it last time around. Nothing of the sort for lap 12. There's actually Mark starting to stretch out a bit of a gap over Mr. Anchor, almost at a second now. But I'm sure that will close right back up. Kopi, 1 second down on Hypers as Matthias runs a little bit wide and Hypers closes up massively. Can he look for the inside into turn 3? No, I think he's just too far back. They look for the outside. Can he get the cut back? He's decent, just trying to feed the power on the back end, stepping out all the time. He shows his nose to stop Matthias taking the racing line. But Matthias will hold on to 7th place regardless. Meanwhile, Photon down the inside into Brooklands on Etnik. And going to hold it around the outside. Has the inside now for Luffield. Photon trying to hold it around the outside. Should technically be grippier there. And he will get the traction around the outside of Luffield. Through Woodcote. They're still side by side as they now head into Cops. The old turn 1. Photon. Can he make it stick? I think he might about have done it. And he will sweep past Etnik and take 2nd place.
Yeah, and that's the thing that makes overtaking very more difficult in the wet than in the dry conditions, because as soon as you're leaving the perfect line, the racing line, you're getting a very less grippier part of the track, and you know, traction out of a corner is very important, and if you don't have it, you will be slower and you can't overtake.
All of that has meant that the gap to Lehman has extended somewhat to 2.1 seconds. However, Photon will now be closing that gap right up. He's already pulled 7/10 to Etnik, which is pretty insane as Kopi and Bolxton have pretty much closed right up to this group as Mark picks up his second 3-second time penalty of the Grand Prix. Hypers still yet to find a way past Matthias.
And basically, Kopi and Buxton just lined up behind Hypers in this big row of drivers.
14 laps into the race. If we are going to see one-stop strategies, now is the time for those pit stops to happen because we have passed the halfway point in the race. And considering that we haven't seen any pit stops, it leads me to believe that there won't be any pit stops for the rest of the race as well. Picks up his 4th time penalty. One more and he will be disqualified. Photon has closed the gap down to Lehman to 1.6 seconds now. And he's pulled a gap of 1.4 seconds to Etnik, so he is on a roll right now. Anchor very close to Mark. Can he look for the inside into Stowe? He's going to have a little look, but Mark will shut the door instantly. And Anchor will have to wait another lap yet again. And you have to think just how much more pace do these drivers have if Mark was just not holding everyone back at the moment. Regardless, though, this is going to be a fantastic result from Mark that will cement his position in 5th place and really close up to Napadovsky in 3rd. Lehman having a fantastic race so far. Will be looking to jump actually all the way up to 3rd and will tie with Napadovsky if he picks up the win. However, up ahead, Anchor looks like he's got a really good drive onto the Wellington straight. It once again has a look down the inside, but he just does not have the confidence on the brakes heading into Brooklands.
And if Hypers can pass, there I think 5 drivers, which are lined up in front of him, then Photon will take the lead in the championship.
Oh yes, for sure. And we just got the 5th and final penalty for WoW, because that 5th penalty does mean that you get disqualified post-race. That is an ORL official rule. However, speaking of Photon, the gap down to 1.3 seconds to Lehman. This is such a fantastic battle between the pair of them. And, you know, we could say, well, maybe if Hypers had actually got qualifying lap in, but Hypers is slower than them because he had the chance when he was in clear air. However, gonna hold that thought because Mark runs a bit wide through Stowe. Anchor now looks for the inside. And actually, wait, what's happened to Mark? Oh, Mark's into the pits. Mark is in the pits, and he is the only one to do so. Crew 6 will follow, but can Mark make the undercut work? And this is where I think we might see some hectic action on circuit, and where drivers will really need to push. The other crucial part now, Mark, he needs to get out in clear air as Hypers very late on the brakes and will miss the apex for turn 3 as once again he looks down the inside of Matthias into turn 4, won't be able to make it work. Mark still in the pits, about to cross the pit exit line, and he should come out ahead of Andinator. It'll be tight, but he
And
will
Mark
come
and
out
Crucix
just
are
ahead.
now both out on intermediates.
Oh, yes. So it
So
appears, Maku, that the track is drying.
yeah, that's what I thought before, because I think it's raining less than at the beginning of the race.
Now, I'm just looking at the track and seeing a lot of water. I can't judge between full wets and inters, but clearly
Yeah, that's a
Mark
funny thing,
can.
because in your stream it looks like there's a lot of water, but when I look on my screen, there's not that much water.
We're getting mixed information here from Codemasters. Absolutely unacceptable. 3 drivers on intermediate tires. So, the only way we can really judge this is by looking at the lap times. Photon won't peel into the pits. He doesn't want to take a risk. He wants to keep even with Triton Lehman right now. Let's just keep an eye on what kind of times Lehman and Photon are setting. Lehman will come across the line. It's a 44.5. It's a 43.7 from Photon. Meanwhile, we're seeing Anchor and Hypers peel into the pit. Are they going for intermediate tires as well? Let's take a look. Hypers into the pits. He'll be too far behind to jump ahead of Anchor. Intermediate tires for both drivers. Front wing change from Anchor will mean that he drops behind Hypers and will mean Mark will stay in what is effectively a 4th place. It also means the field will spread out a bit now. Matthias 1.6 seconds behind on Hadler, who's a further 5.6 seconds behind Etnik. Velocity Hyper's out. You can see Mark up ahead, but it's a fairly large gap as Bolix and Kopi quite close to Matthias.
And as you can see, Mark has just driven a 1:34.43.6. So he is now basically driving the same times as Lehman and Etnik. And I think the intermediate tires are now faster than the full.
But let's take a look when he crosses the line, because that would have been his outlap that we just saw. He shouldn't have completed a lap yet.
Yeah, that's true. Right.
Because I know there is a weird thing at Silverstone where the lap that you pit, it's actually almost a faster lap because you cut the entire of the last chicane. So if you speed into the pit lane, technically you can set a much faster lap. Mark though runs wide as Matthias comes in. Intermediate tires have just struggled getting up to temperature. Well, Matthias should be able to jump ahead. Photon 0.2 seconds down on Lehman. We wanted a drawing. We wanted changeable conditions, Mako, and it seems we have it. If only we can get maybe some slicks for the final couple of laps, that would be absolutely amazing. Matthias coming out of the pits now. Mark will feed.
Team is lagging a lot.
Oh no. It's because on stream, Matthias has lost ground to Hypers, and he was ahead of Hypers beforehand. So the intermediates, the undercut on the intermediates has worked massively. And what this means is that Photon and Lehman, when they come into the pits, they might actually fall behind Mark. One of them needs to pull the pin and make a pit stop, or Are they going to risk it and go all the way to the end of the race? Lehman will not. He's going to come into the pits. Photon, I'm noticing also that it's a lot wetter at the end of the circuit than it is coming through the old start circuit. Okay, Lehman into the pits. Hitler picks up a 3-second time penalty. Right, but where will Triton Lehman feed out? He's got Mark coming round the final corner now. He should be fine. But how big will the gap be? Mark sets the new fastest lap of the race. Seconds, so good job by Lehman just to pit that a little bit earlier. Now, Photon, will he pit this lap or will he risk it? As Soren retires from the session, let's take a look. Calcifer should be coming up to where Photon DNF'd. What has happened to Photon here? As Crucix picks up a time penalty. I see the green flag, but I do not see Soren. Photon won't, so neither will Etnik. So Photon, Etnik, maybe everyone who's still out on the wet tires are going to look to try to stretch these wets out to the end of the race. They're losing about a second. So Photon's just on a 43.3. Let's just see what Mark can do, because if it's only a second a lap, well, the intermediate tires just might not pay off.
Lehman has 15 seconds to Buxan, so if they're just a second slower, they have like still 8
right, here comes Mark. It's a 42.6. What about Hypers? I mean, so it's almost a second a lap quicker on the intermediate tires. 7 laps to go, but the track is drying, so it'll be a stagnated effect.
I don't think that the intermediates will be that fast to get that.
Casper picks up another 3-second time penalty as well. 14.5 seconds from Lehman to Boltzen, but you can see the track drying up here through Lovefield, riding on board with Hypers at the minute, and it depends just how quickly does this track dry up. Is just this is the first time we have had changeable conditions since I started casting an ORL, so I am so hyped for this. Mr. Anchor is also closing up onto Crew 6, so he could be looking for a way through. Right, guys, I'm going to try to...
So basically, I think Lehman can maybe overtake Buxan, and maybe Kopi, but I don't know if he can get up to the podium.
Okay. Do let me know, guys, if the stream quality has improved, as Mark and Hypers, they're setting 42 flats. Hypers is closing onto Mark as the battle for 7th place has begun. If he's closing up enough, that's a different story entirely. Photon and Etnik, they haven't pitted yet, so I highly doubt that they will pit full stop. Triton Lehman, 13.2 seconds behind Bullockson now. He's gained about 2 seconds in that previous lap. So it's fast enough to catch up to Bullockson potentially, but then when you factor in the fact that they have to find a way past, you have to doubt whether they'll be able to get any further up the grid. We go, Hypers is almost within a second of Mark, but the track looks like it's drying up so quickly right now. If you take a look at where Kopi is, it's almost barely raining. As long as the driver's on the full wets, as long as they can keep those tires nice and cool, they can make this strategy work. But any one mistake could just lead to, well, just the tires just completely breaking down. As Matthias picks up a 3-second time penalty. So does Lehman. He picks up a time penalty as well. Now, Etnik and Photon do not have any penalties. So, wherever they finish, that is going to be their results as Lehman runs wide and just trying to potentially push too much on the into the gap to Bolton is 11.4 seconds now. So, that's another 2 seconds on that last lap, but is not increasing, and whereas in the gap that he is closing in by is not increasing, I should say. Photon has pulled out a 2-second gap to Etnik as well right now. Hypers struggling to get within the 1 second zone of mark. Not that there is any DRS to be gained from it. Lehman, can he close in onto Bulloxton and Kopi? Neither of them have any penalties, while Lehman does have a 3-second time penalty. Let's take a look. Photon coming around the final couple of corners. Let's see what this lap is going to be. It's going to be a 43.6, so very consistent from Photon, constantly in these 43s. Whereas Kopi and Bolton coming around now. Etnik picks up a time penalty. So Kopi set a 44.8. Now, what will Lehman be setting? He's very close now. It's a 42.4, so it's a second a lap to Photon, and 2 seconds a lap to Bolton and Kopi. But with 4 laps remaining, Lehman's not even going to catch up to Bolton, let alone get past. And you have to think that the the strategy to pit onto those intermediate tyres just has not worked out at all. And, well, this is going to be a fantastic result for McLaren. A second and a fourth. They were sitting last in the Constructors' Championship. And as soon as Etnik and Kopi, they get signed up, they are now permanent drivers for McLaren. Well, they're just showing what they can do. Lehman 8.6 seconds down on Bolxen, who is close to Kopi. He's going to be hoping that they can hold each other up. Nobody else is within a second, with the exception of Mr. Anchor, who's been about half a second down on Crew 6 for quite a while now. Bolxen just happy to sit behind Kopi for now. Let's just take another look at what kind of lap times these two are setting. Kopi is not looking... It's actually looking fairly good. It's a 43.7 and a 43.6 from Bolxen. Is the rain potentially coming back down? Lehman, what is it going to be? It's a 41.6. So another 2 seconds out of Bolxen and Kopi as Matthias sets a 41.4 and a new fastest lap of the race. Don't forget, a bonus point for fastest lap, which will help Williams out just a little bit. 7 seconds, 3 laps remaining. It's going to be tight, but then again, Lehman has a time penalty to add on, so it's not looking good. Mark has 6 seconds worth of time penalty, so he's going to fall behind Hypers and Matthias. So it's not going to be a good day in the office for Ferrari after they were sitting 4th and 5th. How a period of 10 minutes can change the outlook of the race. Photon with now a 3-second gap over Etnik. Photon has really come alive since Monaco, since he picked up his first win of the season in Monaco. Everything has just been going really well for him. I think he's been on the podium every single race since Monaco. And he's looking in perfect position to overtake Hypers in the championship, but more importantly, stretch out a lead and go for the title. Hadler, a 44.1. Kopi, 43.7 and Bolton a 44.1. Tritton Lehman will come round the final corner and set a 41.8. 2.5 seconds. 2 laps remaining. 5.2 seconds is the gap between him and Bolton. He needs to catch about 3 seconds a lap if he wants to be able to find a way through, as Calcifer picks up another time penalty. Tristan Lehman, the gap is now 4.5 seconds. Hypers, 4/10 down on Mark. Anchor, 3/10 down on Crucix. Can the intermediate runners close up to those the full wet runners? You know, just 1-2 more laps. If the track had actually dried out a little bit more, it would have worked out. You know, maybe if Lehman had pitted a few laps earlier at the same time Mark did, it would have worked out better for him as well. But the power of hindsight is a beautiful thing. 4 seconds now the gap. As Anka is very, very close to Crucix. As apparently, Maku, you've disconnected from the session.
Yeah, my Steam just thought, yeah, you won't get a connection anymore.
Oh, okay. Well, hopefully Steam won't die on us just before this race ends. 1.5 seconds is the gap from Bolton to Kopi. Anchor looking for a way through on Crucix, won't be able to do it, but we have entered the final lap of the race. Hypers right on the tail of Mark. Tritton Lehman 3 seconds behind Bolton. He found 2.5 seconds that last time around, but he's just too far behind, and he won't be able to make anything happen unless Bolton makes a mistake. Photo, meanwhile, is in fantastic form. Anchor picks up another 3-second time penalty. Hypers and Mark, this might be the only place we see a move happen. But Mark has 6 seconds worth of time penalty, so it won't affect the race at all. Matthias will jump ahead of Mark as well. Into Sector 2 we go. Tritton Lehman 1.8 seconds down on Bolton as Calcifer picks up his 4th time penalty of the race, all the way down in 14th place. Tritton Lehman, is he close enough to make anything work? He's 1.4 seconds down as we enter Maggots and Beckett's and we start the 3rd and final sector. Meanwhile, up ahead, Photon has pulled out a 5-second lead. It's been a fantastic race from him. Didn't get the best of qualifyings, but after qualifying, it has been an impeccable race from Photon, who will pick up his 2nd race win on the trot, just as a final corner to go, and Photon will take the British Grand Prix. Etnik will come round behind to take 2nd place. Hadler picks up 3rd. Kopi will take 4th. And Bolton right behind to pick up 5th, with Tritton Lehman right behind him. Hypers jumps up ahead of Mark, as will Matthias. Mark dropping down to 9th place as Anchor might take 10th, but Crucix losing the back end across the line won't jump ahead of Anchor, as they both had 2 time penalties. So that is your top 10. Ballast Kevin taking 12th ahead of Kaboom. And it will be Calcifer and Andinator to round out the grid. Well, our first ever changeable ORL race, at least since Season 10. And, well, the changeable conditions didn't actually work out for the drivers who went onto those intermediate tyres. As you can see on the podium, it is pretty dry now here at Silverstone, and you can see those wet tyres, just no tread left in them at all. However, guys, we're going to be heading into a short break, but don't worry, we're going to be right back with the driver interview, so do stay tuned. Unfortunately, as I mentioned before, we're having some production issues, so we won't have any of our overlays or music to keep you entertained, but we'll try to keep the break as short as possible. So don't go anywhere, we'll be right back.
exactly.
Right, sorry guys, we are back because I just realized that I need to go into the race director before I have people shout at me. So, here is the race director and all the incidents for any of you that are interested. I need to scroll through this before, well, before the game decides to take me out of the game, if that makes sense. A lot of time penalties, almost as much as we saw in Austria. But there you have it. We're going to head into a break for real this time, and we'll be right back, so don't go anywhere. All right, guys. It appears that we won't be able to have any interviews. Just to recap, though, it was Photon who picked up a fantastic victory after a very, very good drive in changeable conditions, and well, staying on the full wets worked better than switching over to the intermediates, Maku.
Yeah, right. And with that win, and with Hypers in eighth place, I think it is, with every penalty applied, he will be taking the lead in the Drivers' Championship.
Yeah. So Photon takes the lead in the Drivers' Championship. Hypers will drop down to second. Lehman will still be in fourth, but is only about 4 points off Napadovsky. Mark got a few points, he'll move forward. Also in the Constructors' Championships, that's really big for Toro Rosso, who will jump up into second. Williams also picked up a good result. They should jump up into fourth. And McLaren from 10th place. I'm not sure if they'll jump ahead of Haas, but they will be right on their tails. With all that said and done, do stay tuned for the highlights video that will be coming out probably on Sunday. Also for the race recap announcement that'll be coming out on Steam. If you haven't already, do hit us up with a follow on Twitter. I think you can find the ORL Twitter link as well as mine and Maku's down in the description below. You can also find the link to the official ORL channel where the highlights videos will be posted, as well as the Steam community link if you yourself wish to join ORL. We have a B split, and it's always a great place to have a bit of fun and some serious official racing. However, with all that said and done, thank you everyone for joining us. Stay fast. We'll see you next week for round 12 at the next ORL race in Germany. Thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.